Most people believe they are busy because they are important. In reality, they are busy because they are unprotected. Their calendar is open territory. Anyone can walk in, place a meeting, demand an hour, and quietly steal attention away from what truly matters. Your calendar is not just a scheduling tool, it is a direct reflection of your priorities. And if you don't protect it, you are allowing others to decide what deserves your energy more than you do. Every day we say certain things matter to us. Family matters. Growth matters. Health matters. Long-term vision matters. But when you look at most calendars, these priorities are invisible. What shows up instead are urgent requests, last-minute meetings, and reactive tasks. This disconnect is where frustration begins. We feel busy yet unfulfilled. We feel productive yet stuck. Protecting your calendar forces alignment between what you say matters and you actually do. When you protect your calendar, you are practicing intentional leadership. Leadership is not about responding faster. It is about deciding better. The moment you allow your calendar to fill without intention, you move from leading your time to reacting to it. But when you block time for deep thinking, learning, rest, and planning, you create space for clarity. And clarity is the foundation of better decisions. There's a common fear that saying no to meetings or requests will make us seem uncooperative or uncommitted. In reality, the opposite is true. When your time is clearly structured, people begin to respect it. They see boundaries. They see purpose. Saying no to one thing is not rejection. It is commitment to something more important. Protecting your calendar is not about doing less work. It is about doing the right work. Another powerful shift happens when you begin to schedule your priorities before others schedule theirs. If reflection, strategy, or personal growth are important, they must be placed on the calendar first. If they are left for later, later never comes. What gets scheduled gets done. And what gets done consistently shapes your future. Your calendar over time becomes a design tool for the life and work you want to build. Protecting your calendar also changes how you show up mentally. When your days are overloaded, your thinking becomes shallow. You rush from one commitment to another with no time to process, connect, or create. But when there is white space, your mind does what it was designed to do. It sees patterns, it asks better questions, it finds meaning. Productivity improves not because you do more, but because you think better. In the end, protecting your calendar is an act of self-respect and responsibility. It signals that your time, attention, and energy are valuable. When you take control of your calendar, you stop living by default and start living by design. And when that happens, everything changes. How you work, how you lead, and how fulfilled you feel at the end of each day. Fucking notes of the speech, your calendar reflects your true priorities, not your intentions. Protecting time turns you from reactive to intentional. Saying no is a commitment to what matters most. What you schedule consistently shapes your future. A white space on your calendar improves clarity and decision making. Most people believe their priorities are defined by what they care about, what they talk about, or what they aspire to achieve. But in reality, priorities are not proven by words or intentions. They are revealed through behavior. And there is no clearer record of behavior than a calendar. You may say your health matters, your family matters, your growth matters, yet when you look closely at how your days are filled, those priorities often have no visible presence. Instead, the calendar is packed with meetings, calls, and tasks that arrive not because they were important, but because they were allowed. The calendar doesn't lie. It shows where attention actually goes. It exposes the gap between who we believe we are and how we truly operate. Many people feel frustrated not because they are lazy or unmotivated, but because their time is continuously spent on things that do not align with their values. They think they lack discipline, when in fact they lack alignment. Once you recognize that your calendar reflects your real priorities, the illusion disappears and responsibility becomes clear. Urgency is often confused with importance. When something feels urgent, it demands space on the calendar immediately. Notifications, last-minute meetings, and unexpected requests all carry a sense of pressure. Over time, they crowd out what is meaningful but not loud. Strategic thinking, personal development, deep work, and relationships rarely demand immediate attention. They rely on intention. When these are absent from your schedule, it is not because they don't matter, but because they weren't protected. People often defend their calendars by saying they have no control. Work demands it. Family needs it. Circumstances force it. But while not everything can be controlled, more can be influenced than we admit. Every yes placed on the calendar is a choice, even when it doesn't feel like one. Repeated choices create patterns, and patterns define priorities. When you see the same types of commitments filling your days week after week, you are looking at your true focus in action. There is also a subtle comfort in staying busy. Full calendars make us feel needed, valued, and productive. But business is not proof of significance. A crowded schedule can hide a lack of direction. It distracts us from asking harder questions about whether our time investment is meaningful. When everything is scheduled except reflection and growth, the calendar becomes a tool for maintenance, not progress. The moment you begin evaluating your calendar as a mirror rather than a planner, your perspective shifts. Instead of asking what you need to fit in, you begin asking what you need to protect. Time for learning, thinking, and recovery doesn't compete well with urgent demands, so it must be deliberately placed. When those entries appear, they communicate priorities not only to others, but to yourself. They reinforce identity through action. A calendar also shapes behavior beyond the present moment. What appears repeatedly becomes normal. If evenings are consistently consumed by work, balance becomes an idea, not a practice. If mornings are constantly reactive, clarity becomes rare. Over time, these patterns define how life feels. The calendar quietly designs experience, mood, and momentum. Understanding that your calendar reflects your true priorities removes excuses and creates empowerment. It means change does not begin with motivation or inspiration, but with deliberate scheduling. When you shift even small blocks of time toward what matters, your calendar begins to tell a different story. And as that story changes, so does your sense of purpose, control, and direction. Most people believe time management is about doing more things faster, but in truth, it is about deciding what deserves attention before the day begins. When time is not intentionally directed, it defaults to reaction. Emails dictate focus, messages interrupt flow, meetings appear without warning. In this state, you are not leading your time is leading you. Protecting time is the shift that moves a person from reacting to events toward intentionally shaping outcomes. A reactive day always feels urgent. Everything seems important because it arrives suddenly and demands immediate response. The problem is not the volume of work, but the absence of boundaries. Without boundaries, the calendar becomes an open door where anything can enter. Reaction feels productive in the moment because it offers quick wins, but over time it produces exhaustion and stagnation. Intentional time, on the other hand, creates direction. It makes space for the work that doesn't shout but deeply matters. Intentional scheduling begins with recognizing that not all tasks carry the same weight. Some tasks maintain systems while others move them forward. When days are filled only with maintenance, progress slows even though effort remains high. Protecting time allows forward-moving work to exist without being constantly interrupted. Deep thinking, planning, and creative problem solving require uninterrupted focus, which reaction rarely provides. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when time is protected. When you know a block of time exists for a specific purpose, mental energy stabilizes. The mind is no longer scattered by the fear of forgetting or falling behind. Instead of jumping between demands, attention becomes deliberate. This improves quality of thought and decision-making. Intentional time creates calm, and calm allows clarity to emerge. Many people hesitate to protect time because they worry about appearing unavailable. But availability without direction serves everyone except the person offering it. When leaders protect their time, they model clarity and discipline. They show that effectiveness is not measured by constant responsiveness, but by meaningful outcomes. Over time, others adapt to these boundaries. Meetings become more focused. Requests become more thoughtful. Respect replaces expectation. Being intentional does not mean eliminating flexibility. It means designing structure that can absorb change without collapsing. A calendar built entirely on reaction has no resilience. One unexpected demand disrupts the entire day. But an intentional calendar includes buffers, priorities, and clear objectives. This allows adjustments without sacrificing what matters most. Reaction also limits vision. When attention is consumed by the immediate, long-term thinking disappears. Strategy requires distance from urgency. It requires moments where the mind can step back and ask why before addressing what. Protecting time for this kind of thinking transforms leadership from managing problems to preventing them. Intentional control of time also enhances personal growth. Learning, reflection, and improvement cannot survive in a reactive schedule. They require consistency. When protected time is repeatedly honored, growth becomes a habit rather than an ambition. Over weeks and months, this small discipline compounds into significant progress. The transition from reactive to intentional living does not happen through dramatic change. It happens through deliberate choices repeated daily. Each protected block of time is a statement of ownership. It says that focus will not be surrendered to urgency. And as these choices accumulate, time transforms from a source of stress into a tool for purpose and impact. Saying no is often misunderstood as negativity, resistance, or lack of cooperation, but in reality, it is one of the clearest expressions of commitment. Every time you say yes to something, you are simultaneously saying no to something else. Time is finite, attention is limited, and energy has boundaries. When these limits are ignored, quality suffers. Saying no is not about shutting doors, it is about protecting the door that truly matters. Many people struggle with saying no because they confuse being helpful with being available. They believe that availability equals value, so they keep their calendar open to prove dedication. Over time, this behavior trains others to expect access without consideration. The more yes is given without intention, the less meaningful each commitment becomes. What begins as cooperation slowly turns into dilution of focus. A thoughtful no clarifies purpose. It forces a deeper evaluation of whether a request aligns with priorities. When alignment exists, yes is given with confidence. When it does not, no becomes an act of integrity rather than refusal. This clarity reduces internal conflicts. Instead of feeling overwhelmed and resentful, individuals experience control and respect for their own direction. There is also a significant difference between reactive no and intentional no. Reactive no is defensive and emotional. Intentional no is calm and grounded in purpose. It is supported by a clear understanding of what deserves time and attention. When boundaries are rooted in meaning, they are easier to communicate and easier to maintain. Many fear that saying no will damage relationships or opportunities. Yet most respect is lost not when no is spoken, but when commitments are made and poorly delivered. Overcommitment leads to missed deadlines, reduced quality, and broken trust. A well-placed no preserves credibility. It signals that when a commitment is made, it will receive full effort. Saying no also protects future capacity. Time spent on low-impact tasks is time unavailable for high-impact work. Progress depends not on how much is done, but on what is protected. By declining distractions, resources are conserved for activities that generate meaningful results. This is how momentum is built and sustained. There is a personal cost to constantly saying yes. Mental overload increases, focus fragments, purpose fades. Eventually, burnout replaces enthusiasm. A protected calendar, supported by intentional no's, guards against space this erosion. It creates space for rest, reflection, and creative thinking, all of which are essential for long-term effectiveness. The practice of saying no becomes easier with repetition. Each boundary reinforces identity. It teaches others how to engage and teaches the individual what truly matters. Over time, no is no longer seen as rejection, but as direction. It shapes a calendar that reflects intention rather than obligation and allows energy to be invested where it makes the greatest difference. When saying no is guided by clarity, it strengthens alignment between values and actions. It becomes a tool for focus, respect, and sustained excellence rather than a source of guilt or fear. The future is not shaped by single decisions made in moments of motivation. It is shaped by small actions repeated consistently over time. What you place on your calendar again and again becomes your routine, and your routine eventually becomes your reality. This is why scheduling is never neutral. Every recurring commitment is a vote for the kind of future you are moving toward, whether you are aware of it or not. Many people rely on intention when it comes to their future. They plan to exercise more, learn more, think more, spend more time with people they care about. But intention without structure fades under pressure. Days fill quickly, energy declines, and what was meant to happen is replaced by what must happen. The calendar becomes the deciding force, not desire. What isn't scheduled is consistently delayed, and what is delayed long enough quietly disappears. Consistency is powerful because it removes negotiation. When something appears on the calendar repeatedly, it no longer requires daily motivation or willpower. The decision has already been made. This is how habits are formed and how progress compounds. A single hour once may feel insignificant, but 1 hour weekly becomes dozens of hours over a year. That accumulation shapes skills, health, insight, and relationships in ways that occasional effort never can. When important work appears only when time allows, it competes against everything else. Urgent tasks always win because they carry pressure. Scheduling priorities consistently removes them from competition. They gain protected status. Over time, this protection sends a message to the mind and to others that these commitments are non-negotiable. This consistency builds trust in yourself. You begin to believe your own promises because you repeatedly keep them. There is also an identity shift that happens when the calendar reflects long-term goals. Someone who schedules learning begins to see themselves as a learner. Someone who schedules reflection begins to see themselves as thoughtful. Someone who schedules health begins to act like it matters. Identity is not claimed through words, it is reinforced through repeated action. The calendar silently shapes who you become. Inconsistent scheduling creates frustration because progress feels random. Some weeks feel productive, others disappear without evidence of growth. This inconsistency makes success feel distant and unreliable. But when efforts are anchored to the calendar, momentum becomes visible. Progress may be slow, but it is predictable. Predictability builds confidence, and confidence fuels persistence. Over time, the future created by consistent scheduling begins to show results. Skilled decisions improve, relationships strengthen, opportunities expand. These outcomes are often mistaken for talent or luck, but they are usually the result of quiet discipline. Others see the outcome, not the calendar behind it. What makes this approach powerful is not intensity, but repetition. Extreme effort burns out. Moderate effort repeated endures. A calendar that reflects long-term priorities acts as a bridge between present actions and future results. It ensures that today's effort serves tomorrow's vision rather than being consumed entirely by today's demands. When you look at your calendar through this lens, it becomes more than a tool for organizing time. It becomes a compass. Each repeated entry points you toward a future that is slowly being built day by day without noise or drama, just steady alignment between action and intention. Most people assume that productivity is about filling every available hour with activity, but the opposite is often true. When a calendar is packed without pause, thinking becomes rushed and decisions become reactive. White space, the unscheduled time between commitments, is not wasted time. It is the space where understanding deepens, connections form, and better judgment emerges. Without it, even the most disciplined schedule becomes a trap. The human mind needs transitions. Moving directly from one commitment to another leaves no room to process what just happened or prepare for what comes next. Over time, this constant switching degrades focus and increases mental fatigue. White space allows thoughts to settle. It gives the brain permission to reflect, question, and recalibrate. This is not indulgence, it is maintenance for clear thinking. When white space exists on the calendar, decision-making improves. Instead of reacting impulsively, there is time to evaluate options with perspective. You begin to ask better questions rather than rush toward quick answers. Patterns become visible. Risks are spotted earlier. Choices are made with intention rather than pressure. The quality of decisions rises, not because of more information, but because there is room to think. Many important insights do not appear during activity, but after it. They arrive when the mind is quiet, not crowded. White space creates the conditions for insight by removing noise. It is during these moments that creative ideas emerge and complex problems untangle themselves. Without space, the mind remains locked in execution mode, unable to step back and see the broader picture. Leaders who prioritize white space tend to lead with clarity rather than urgency. They resist the temptation to solve every problem immediately. Instead, they create distance between stimulus and response. This distance is where wisdom lives. It allows emotions to settle and objectivity to return. As a result, communication improves, conflicts reduce, and teams feel more secure in the direction they are following. White space also enhances self-awareness. When every moment is scheduled, there is little opportunity to reflect on behavior, habits, and results. Growth requires reflection. Without it, mistakes repeat themselves. White space creates accountability without pressure. It encourages honest evaluation and continuous improvement. There is a cultural tendency to equate business with importance. Empty spaces on a calendar can feel uncomfortable, even irresponsible. But true effectiveness is not measured by visible activity, it is measured by impact. White space is invisible work with visible results. It protects energy, sharpens focus, and sustains performance over time. When white space is intentionally placed, it becomes a strategic asset rather than a gap to be filled. It absorbs unexpected demands without chaos. It preserves attention for critical moments. It acts as a buffer that prevents overwhelm and burnout. Over time, it changes how work feels. Pressure decreases, confidence increases. Purpose becomes clearer. A calendar that includes white space respects how humans actually think, decide, and perform. It acknowledges limits and works with them instead of against them. By creating space, you allow clarity to surface, and clarity becomes the foundation for better decisions, stronger leadership, and more meaningful progress. When you step back and look at how your calendar is filled, you begin to understand that time is not just something you manage, it is something you invest. Every meeting accepted, every block protected, every space left open is a decision shaping your direction. Protecting your calendar is not about control for the sake of control, it is about alignment. It aligns your actions with your values and your days with your long-term vision. When priorities are intentional, reaction loses its power. When time is protected, clarity increases. When no is used with purpose, focus strengthens. When consistency shapes your schedule, the future becomes predictable in the best possible way. And when white space is respected, decisions improve and leadership deepens. In the end, protecting your calendar is how you move from being busy to being effective. It is how you stop drifting through obligations and start designing a life and body of work that reflects what truly matters.